Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, my dear brothers and sisters and viewers of Ikra TV. Welcome back to the second edition or second part of my special program today, which is coming from outside. We're not in the studio. As I mentioned in the first part, we are at the British Muslim Heritage Centre. And you've seen my interview with the chair of the Board of Trustees, Brother Nasser Mahmood OBE, and he shared with us the vision behind the centre, some of the activities they were doing, what they wanted to do, why they set it all up, etc. Now let's talk to the man who actually does the day-to-day hard work behind the scenes, who would make sure the centre runs efficiently, effectively, and delivers on some of that vision that the Brother Nasser Mahmood shared with us. And I'm sure running a centre like this, despite Brother Mahmood saying that money is not an object, I'm sure like everybody else in this country and other parts of the world, we all face difficulties when it comes to actual money. We say we have sufficient, but we never ever have that. And sometimes it's just enough to keep us going on a day-to-day bread level basis, but not actually sufficient to actually do some real proactive work in terms of what we really want to, what needs to be done. And that man is no stranger to me or this channel. He has been on my program before. We've spoken about Islamophobia and hate crime because he was one of the key senior civil servants in the Home Office for many, many years, dealing with inequalities and hate crime and Islamophobia. So can I welcome my dear friend Maqsood Ahmed, Maqsood OBE. Welcome to the program again.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
Thank you for allowing us to come today.
Iqbal Bhai, it's a pleasure having you here. As always, this is your centre and you're most welcome anytime. And thank you for taking time out and sharing some of our vision, sharing our thoughts.
As I said to my viewers in the first part of the program, we hear this absolutely amazing, magnificent British Muslim Heritage Centre, which is based in Manchester. We were talking to the chair from his office, Maqsood's office, but this room where we now move to has got this amazing display of history of Muslim and Islam going over centuries. It displays articles about inventions that the Muslims have been responsible for, setting up universities. In fact, even I didn't know this, coffee was something that was invented by a Muslim shepherd. He was the one who came up with the coffee beans and realized what the potential of the coffee beans are. And calligraphy, architecture, schools, universities, transferring knowledge. These are all things that Muslims around the centuries have been at the forefront of. And that's what this centre celebrates. And this is what Maqsood, I think when he came here, started to sort of put together. So Maqsood, I'm absolutely blown away when I come here, and I'm sure you have visitors come here every time, and they must be sort of absolutely taken aback by what we have here that obviously they may have not come across. So tell me something more about the centre. What is the centre sort of on a day-to-day basis? What's the centre do?
So for us, we're sitting in the House of Wisdom, as we call it, Iqbal Bhai, and the reason why it's House of Wisdom is that the golden era of Islam after the Prophet and then during the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And this is just inside a clip of actually the contribution of Muslims. And it's very important in this time and age, as you know, because you and I have both sort of tackled issues around Islamophobia and misunderstanding and other areas of work that we needed to do. So it's important that actually non-Muslims appreciate the contribution of Muslims.
Even Muslims don't know how.
Even Muslims don't know.
I didn't know some of the stuff that's displayed on display here.
Absolutely. So our idea is to every space that we have, we actually fill it with knowledge base. So you'll see the stories of corridor, the stories of sacrifice, the corridor, but the contribution of Muslims and Indians and Pakistanis in the First World War and Second World War. So it's a knowledge base. So the centre, the way we see it, is going to be a centre of excellence for learning and development for the Muslim community and for the non-Muslim community. And this is a good example. It's a multi-purpose room. We have this as an exhibition room, but we also have workshops here. We also have, people can come here, we can have discussions and groups and so forth. So we use it as a multi-purpose room. But you're right in the sense of it's a lovely building, and the trustees have worked very hard in the sense of making sure it sort of continues for the community as a charity.
Yeah.
But
I
it
mean,
does
it's a
require
vibrant
some
place,
funding.
isn't it?
It's a very vibrant place.
Yeah.
You'll find today there's a wedding going on, there's 3 or 4 workshops taking place. One is on domestic violence, the other one's about actually issues around education and so forth.
Right.
So it's a very vibrant centre where it's very busy in a sense, and you can see the cars parked from the car parking at the back. But the most important thing for me is, and I've been here over just 3 years now.
Right. I was going to ask, how long have you been CEO?
So just over 3 years, and in the sense of that for me is how do we actually respond to the Muslim community and to the non-Muslim community. So when we first started, I had the opportunity of going around and talking to Muslims and non-Muslims, chief executives and non-chief executives, people who are actually basically not in work and who are and those who are working. And I sort of they basically phrase into 9 areas of what we should be doing.
Right.
And they're not in that particular
This is
order.
feedback from the Muslim community.
This is feedback
itself.
from the Muslim community and the non-Muslim communities,
yeah.
because it's a centre for everybody. And that's how we want. It just happened to be managed and led by the British Muslims, hence the British Muslim name with regards towards that. And I think that's important because we want to be seen as a positive centre that's contributing towards society, not just the Muslim community, but also the non-Muslim community. And they highlighted issues really about why you and I have been working on these for a long time, and those issues haven't gone away. Things like tackling Islamophobia. So, for example, this should be a base to bring people together to promote better understanding between Muslims and non-Muslims. And there's no other better way of doing that by bringing people together through workshops, through seminars, and we do a lot of that on a daily basis, basically. The second one is that how do we actually tackle some of the health inequalities which our Muslim communities are facing? So diabetes, stroke, cardiovascular disease.
Which became more pronounced during the pandemic.
Absolutely, and mental health. And we know that our communities were affected more, especially those vulnerable communities, the Pakistani, Bangladeshi, Indian community and other communities. And there's enough now information, facts and reports on that. But having that knowledge base is fine, but this centre has to do more than that. It has to come with the solutions. So we've set up health inequalities sort of committees and boards and start to have programs on diabetes where people can come in here. They can come here and check diabetes. We've got mental health network where we're talking about mental health, anxiety, depression, particularly with our sisters and our brothers in a sense on it. We need to talk about these things and then signpost them to professionals who can help and support.
And do you find that, one of the things that emerged from the pandemic, I mean, you and I have known this for many, many years anyway, working in the institutions, that the institutions themselves, the providers, are not geared up for delivering appropriate services. Do you feel that the work you're doing is making that making a change?
Absolutely, because if we don't take the mainstream on board with us, Iqbal Bhai, then we are actually isolating ourselves.
Right.
We cannot tackle health inequalities just within the Muslim community, by the Muslim community. We can't tackle Islamophobia by just doing it ourselves and not involving the Greater Manchester Police or the police service or the Home Office or the local authorities. We need to get away from this thinking of we can do everything ourselves. We can't. We're a minority. The reality is we are a minority in the United Kingdom as British Muslims, but we've contributed so much to Great Britain. We should be proud of that.
Enormously, yes,
enormously. Businesses to politicians to doctors and surgeons and so forth. Without the diversity, we wouldn't be able to make Great Britain as Great Britain. Great Britain is great because of the diversity. Your father, my father, your mother, my mother, all the other mothers and fathers that contribute in cotton industry.
Definitely.
So there's something to not be embarrassed about. It's something, absolutely. So therefore, what we are doing, as you know me, my issue has always been is that we want to have a dialogue on an equal basis. We're not coming from an inferior or a superior. What we're saying that we are British, we are Muslims, and this is the debate that we need to have with our mainstream people, whether it's the NHS, whether it's the local authority, whether it's the Greater Manchester Police or the police in general. And that's which my role is basically is to bridge that gap between our Muslim community and our mainstream organisations. And I think that is most crucial for us.
And do you feel that the doors are now opening a bit wider because of the hard work and effort people like yourselves and others made over the last few years, challenging some of these institutions? Are we still facing an uphill battle?
I think things are getting better. So you and I will both agree in that if we had to live in any country, I would personally say United Kingdom is the best country to live in.
Definitely.
If you look at what's happening around the world, this is the best country for us.
And I think sometimes we don't appreciate that, because I went to a conference a few years ago, organized by the European Commission, where all the Eastern European countries and European countries were present. And the extent of Islamophobia and institutional anti-Muslim initiatives was absolutely phenomenal. We don't have that luck in this country. So you're right. So go on.
Yeah, so in one sense, we've got the freedom to practice our religion as British Muslims. We can keep fast, we can go to do Eid prayers, we've got planning permissions for mosques and etc. So we have to be grateful in the sense of we are getting more freedom here than we would do anywhere else. However, there are still challenges, and those challenges are still about structural racism and Islamophobia. It's still there. That's one of the things that the community has been telling us. They're saying one thing this community centre should do is tackle Islamophobia. And internationally, that's coming on. It's a concern. In Europe, it's a concern. You name an area just in cricket, football, and other areas, it's still there, Iqbal. So the challenge for us still remains. But yes, we have now better articulate British Muslims and British Hindus and Sikhs. So we have developed as a community. So the people on the other side from the mainstream is now having a dialogue of equals. So when they speak to you, you're not just basically going to say what they want to hear. You're going to say, well, actually, with all due respect, I disagree with you. This is our experience as British Muslims or as British Hindus. So I think there's that difference. But we do have a challenge now, and that challenge is in international level.
Right.
What type of leaders are we electing to become leaders of countries? What type of leaders are we electing in America, in Pakistan, here in the United Kingdom? And I think that's the challenge for us, is to get the right people in positions who actually care about democracy and fairness. Because, Iqbal, by democracy without justice, it doesn't work. It's meaningless.
Yeah, but do you feel, I totally agree with what you say. Do you feel that sometimes, and I know Nasser Bhai mentioned some of this, alluded to this as well, do you feel that our people, who go into politics, go in there with one arm tied behind their back because they have to follow, toe the party lines, and therefore not able to make fundamental changes to the policy and the practice of those organizations?
I think they do face a lot more challenges because they have to worry about the issues around what affects them as an Asian, as a Muslim, as a woman, are you with me? And so when they go into parliament as a member of parliament, they bring that experience into the parliament. And if the parliament is not used to that different experience, if you're white, male and female, sort of a member of parliament, your experience will be completely different to experience of, say, Afzal Khan, who's a Muslim, Asian, male, from a Pakistani background, Kashmiri background politician. His experience will completely be different. My experience is different to my white colleagues who are CEOs. But it's recognizing that experience and using that experience to actually have a better world and have a better nation, have a better regional sort of like centers that we have like this. And these centers can contribute towards that dialogue and debate. So the challenges are there. But for us, I think the challenges are even more further because we have to influence people. And if you don't have the skill sets to articulate what the Muslim community is going through, then you will struggle, whether you're a CEO, whether you're a politician, or whether you're a councillor. So the challenge for us, Iqbal Bhai, in the modern world now, in 2022, is basically, do we have the right skill sets of people that are actually influencing our agenda?
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask you. Obviously, Afzal Khan I know, and spoke about earlier as well. I have a lot of respect for Afzal Khan. But do you feel that we have sufficiently knowledgeable, articulate people in the political arena, both at local level, in local government? Manchester City Council, for example, we're in Manchester. I don't know how many Muslim councillors there are in there. Bradford City Council have got lots of Muslim councillors, right? Leeds has got a few, and Birmingham. And the question is, these people, do you feel that they have the knowledge, the ability, the skills to do so, or are they being stifled by the wider institutional organization and the parameters within which they have to work in? So, if you're a Labour Party member, you have to follow the Labour Party rules. And if you break the rules, then you're thrown out. Or same with the Conservative Party.
Sure.
We've seen that the Conservative Party is going through a process of self-searching about Islamophobia. Something similar is happening in the Labour Party as well. And despite denials, we have the Prime Minister who's now leaving, or is being forced out, made some extremely derogatory comments about Muslim sisters. And yet he's refused consistently to apologize for making those comments. And the Conservative Party has done nothing about it.
Yeah, sure. So we have, first of all, I think we should be Muslims should be in every political party you can think of, whether it's Conservatives or the Liberal Democrats and Labour Party. So and I don't belong to a particular party, and the Heritage Centre are neutral when it comes to issues. It's not about us being led by the Labour or Conservative or Liberal Democrats. We are an organisation, a charity, which is absolutely,
you have to be apolitical.
Apolitical, so we're not political. But there is a challenge for our communities to basically engage with politics, because if we don't engage with politics, then our community will remain behind. So it's not being political, what I'm saying to them. That's why we have, for example, we have our Aspiring Leaders Program, and that Aspiring Leaders Program is actually about developing young people, some of the young sisters and some of the young brothers, at the average age of 18 to 19, because you're sharp at the age of 18, 19. If we can't shape our young people at the age of 18, 19, we're not going to have a good future with regards to leadership, Iqbal Bhai. So we spend a year with these 30 people now, in a sense, on it. And we're not saying, look, this is the political party you should belong to, or this is not. What we're saying is that recognize how the impact politics have on a community.
So you have 30 people on this program?
We have 30 people on the Aspiring Leaders Program, and we are going through a number of modules. So one of the modules is politics, understanding politics. It's not to say, well, become a Labour Party member or a Conservative member or Liberal Democrats member, but it says that the importance of engaging with politics is very important. What is the role of the Member of Parliament? What are the role of the councillors?
So what other work do you do on this leadership program? What other areas do you cover?
So the other areas we work on is policy and strategy. Because there are three things that keep a community down, in my opinion. If a community is not involved in politics, it'll keep them down. If the community is not involved in policy and strategy, it'll keep them down, because every nation depends on a strategic approach, whether it's a foreign policy or a national policy internally. Policies are very, very important. And if we are not recognized in the policies, Iqbal Bhai, as a Muslim community, then the policies will not benefit us. Because policies are written to help the most disadvantaged groups. That's why we have public services. If we are not mentioned in there, and the other faith groups are mentioned in there, then I'm afraid this community is not going to develop. Because if policies don't recognize them, and then there's no action plan with the resources to do it, then there's going to be no resources allocated to those communities. So our job as a Heritage Centre is to actually work with the young people in our community to say, this is how policies have an impact, and this is what we can do to influence some of the policies and the politicians.
So you developing these young people to go into various different fields?
Absolutely, like media. Media is another one.
Exactly.
If you look at the media narrative from our mainstream and the others, people will argue that actually it's not a fair balanced view. So if you look at how we are supporting Ukraine currently, and how we support other people like Afghanistan, or from areas like Rohingya or other areas, and refugees come from Syria, you can see the vast difference of our commitment as a nation. And I think young people need to understand that, so they can actually have a debate. Have a constructive debate with the decision makers on that. So the media, politics, policy, and engagement. So these are some of the modules that we're actually going through with the young people, so they understand that. Because Iqbal Bhai, you and I were never taught in university, and I went to university, you went to university, and I went to school afterwards. I went afterwards, so it wasn't a mainstream university in there. I had to do it part-time university.
I keep saying to everyone, what they call Angota shop, no education.
But that's why we think differently than if we were just went straight away to Oxford and Cambridge and come back out afterwards not knowing life. We went to the Life University, but we also took the opportunity to work harder to get to part-time university, Leicester University, and back in on 2 nights, 2 evenings, and so forth. We weren't taught how to write policies and impact of policies. We weren't taught what politics, the impact of politics on our community. We weren't taught about the impact of the narrative that the mainstream media can do. The mainstream media is so powerful, they can actually either make us look that we are part of Britain or we're not part of Britain. That's the reality of it.
Power they wield.
So if we don't engage with the mainstream media as Muslims and don't engage in politics and don't engage in policy, I'm saying from my experience of working in those areas, we will never develop as a Muslim community. I can tell you that now. So this is very important for us to actually have programs that are tackling that.
I totally agree with you, and I'm sorry to cut you off because I've just been given the signal that we're coming to the end of the program. But I mean, all this is absolutely fine, and I 120% agree with you. And I've been saying that for a long time, and you've been on my program when I've said the Muslim community is so powerful that if you work together as a collective, we could control 100 parliamentary seats in this country, and that will make a phenomenal difference. It's unfortunate that we don't. Now, just reversing back, I mean, our mosque and madrasas obviously play an important role in our lives. Do you find that our mosques, for example, in surrounding areas, are helping your work, or are they sort of just staying away from it? I mean, I'm sure there'll be some mosque will be saying, promoting the work of the British Muslim Centre.
The concept of the mosques, the way the Prophet, peace be upon him, idea was, sadly, I don't think that's how we're applying the mosques. The mosques are providing a service to the Muslim community on religious grounds. So Eid, Namaz, Jummah, and some of the mosques now started to develop some of the local links with the local authorities, the local police service. So I think there's a great opportunity for mosques to actually get young people involved.
Well, should they
people
be doing work
who are
like this?
Born and bred here, who understand the culture of British culture as well, and let them basically run the mosques now with the sisters involved and so forth. I think our first generation's alhamdulillah, done a fantastic job of having mosques everywhere. This is fantastic, great, because they've set that platform. Just like the trustees here. The trustees here have done a fantastic job purchasing this amazing building and then working hard to sustain it. That's the trustees' job. It is our job now as a CEO and our officers and staff and our volunteers and our young people to take that burden from them and saying, let us now help you to move forward. When that starts to happen in mosques, I think we will develop rapidly. Inshallah. Are you with me from that? Otherwise, the mosque will remain as a crucial, pivotal role in providing a service to the Muslim community on religious grounds.
But even that,
we have to be wider than that, not just religious grounds.
It's not just religious grounds. The mosques sort of need to be more wider and broader in terms of the service they provide. But I mean, I totally agree with that. Can I also say, I mean, not only is we'll show you some of the amazing artifacts that we have here and some of the information that the British Muslim Heritage Centre has got on display. As I say, I was amazed, but they also produce some, some really important literature. And there's this, for example, the House of the
Pearls of
Wisdom. There's this booklet on what is Islam that anybody who wants to learn about Islam will find extremely useful. And there's some other material as well. So I would say to my viewers, if you're around Manchester, or if you're not, if you've got a day that you want to go and see something really amazing and fantastic, especially for your kids, come here, see the displays that they've got here. The one thing that I haven't mentioned on the corridors, as Maqsood mentioned, is the sacrifices that Muslims made in the 2 world wars. There's a whole display about the contribution of Muslims in the 2 world wars. 400,000 Muslim men sacrificed their lives, and some women, in the 2 world wars for the freedom that we enjoy today. So I hope you get the chance to come. We're going to show you some of the beauties of this place, inshallah. Thank you very much for watching. Inshallah, I'll be back next week with another program, which again I hope will resonate with everything that we try to do on Real Talk. Maqsood, thank you very much. I'm really sorry we have to, we have a very short program. I'd love to carry on talking to you, and there's many, many more areas that we need to cover. Inshallah, with your permission and the permission of the Chair and the Board of Trustees, we'd love to come back another time and carry on not just this conversation, but also to showcase some of the other things that is going on in this centre. I hope you found this so far, as I say, interesting. Thank you very much for watching, and inshallah I'll see you soon. Take care. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.